Hey there, I'm Kat, and this is Brews and Reviews. It's time for a wrap-up of all the books that I read in April. I had a really rubbish reading month in April. Not necessarily for the ratings of the books that I read, because I think they were quite highly rated in comparison to other months. I just read fewer books, and I was in the mood to read a lot less. I think I was having like a dip in how I was feeling in April, and just, I just couldn't be bothered to read. I watched a lot of TV in April, and, that's just sometimes that happens. So let's get straight into this. The first book that I read in April was In the Miso Soup. Now, this is a translated book about a guy who works in Tokyo's, seedy underbelly nightlife, and he gives these tours to tourists. He takes them around all of the things that they want to see in what is Tokyo's basically the equivalent of the red light district. And he gets this American tourist that he starts taking around, and then he starts to suspect that Frank, this tourist, may be a serial killer, and he's like, oh, this is a bit scary and dodgy and all that sort of thing. This was just a very strange book. It was very, very strange, and I don't know quite how to feel about it. I feel like there was some really great social commentary stuff in there, and there was this thriller-like build-up to, is this guy an actual serial killer? But I feel like the tension was almost depleted, because there would be that great stuff mixed in with pages and pages, just rambling about any old thing. I think there was like a 3-page ramble about baseball at one point, and it does add stuff to the story, but I was bored. I was really bored. I was just like, why is this just breaking up the story? Just tell me the actual story. It was too rambly for my liking, and it really just destroyed the pacing a little bit. I think it could have been much better had those been shortened. I don't know, but the pacing just didn't work for me, so maybe it works for other people. I think a lot of people quite like the pacing. There is a 10-page section of just really grim things that happen here. It's not the most pleasant of books at all, and there is just a lot that happens in this one 10-page section. It just kind of comes out of nowhere, because you're like, oh yeah, this isn't going great, this guy might be dodgy, and then you're like, oh my god, what's happening now? Jesus. Okay. So that's nice. And honestly, this book's full of just not nice people going about their business, and even the main character, whose head you're in for the entire time, he's not a nice guy. He's dating a 16-year-old, and he thinks it's normal, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm a good guy, and you're like, I know, that's... So he's kind of an unreliable narrator, and you are trying to wonder if, he is actually seeing Frank as a serial killer, or if he's just misinterpreting things about this other guy, and he's just sort of letting his thoughts run away with him. It's an interesting read. I didn't love it, and the end didn't go where I thought it was going to go, which, I suppose is a good thing, but I almost kind of wanted it to go where I wanted it to go, but it's fine. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's not the sort of thing that I normally read, and I think that perhaps if it was the sort of thing that you normally read, you might rate it higher. It just wasn't really for me. And next up, I'm going to talk about 2 books, because they're part of the same series, and that is The Assassin's Blade and Air of Fire by Sarah J. Maas, part of the Throne of Glass series. Apparently, my finger's just not having it right now. This book, fine. Okay, it was really interesting rereading this one, having finished the entire series, because there are a lot of clues sprinkled into the Assassin's Blade that I didn't realise were there, and I really enjoyed that, and I rated that one 4 out of 5 stars. Air of Fire, still fantastic. I love it because my favourite characters are introduced in this one, and things start getting good. This was the book that changed my mind about the Throne of Glass series, and I'm really glad that I got to it, read it, and just really enjoyed it. And this also is where my friends got the Throne of Glass bug. They are now obsessed. I'm not sorry. Do you know what? We actually finished Queen of Shadows last month as well. I'm not getting it out. I'm too lazy. It's here. It's here. We finished that one. I rated Air of Fire and Queen of Shadows 5 stars. Queen of Shadows is fucking fantastic, and I enjoyed it a lot. There are a lot of great things that happened in there, and I also really enjoyed that my friends who liked Kale now don't like Kale. Haha. Queen of Shadows is Kale's worst book, and I will stand on that hill that he does get better after that, but that was the book that made me really, really hate Kale. And I was so glad that I got to enjoy all of the little moments and clues for things that are happening. There's some foreshadowing moments that had me screaming inside, because my friends have never read the Throne of Glass book, so I couldn't be like, oh my god, this, even though in my head I'm like, this. So that was fun. I rated them, both of those 5 out of 5 stars. I also read The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, and I posted a spoiler-free review of that one, which I'll leave in the description below, and you can go check that out if you want to know spoiler-free thoughts on it. I really enjoyed this book, much more than I was expecting, and in my head it kind of sits in the same sort of place as The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Not sure why. That's just like purely based on vibes. I don't know why, I just get vibes. It's historical fantasy, and I don't really love historical fiction stuff, and I don't really know very much about that period of time that The Familiar is set in, but I enjoyed it all the same. And there is an element of competition in this book, and I love a competition book, so I'm here for that. I also love it when magic has a consequence, and that is a big part of The Familiar. So, you know, if you like Leigh Bardugo's writing and you're not sure about this book, check it out. You'll like it, because her writing is still just the same as it always was, and I think she does enough to sort of draw you into the time period. But yeah, I rated that one 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I buddy read Set on You by Amy Lee with Emily from Novell Novels. This is a gym-based romance about a plus-size girl who is a gym-fluencer. Oh god, I hate myself for saying that word out loud, but gymfluencer, and about a guy that she sort of like rivals with in the gym because he's kind of an asshole, and it's like rivals to lovers, and there's some other things going on as well. There is a lot of fat phobia in this from internet trolls, essentially, because you do get the aspects of her gym platform coming into this. And I like this book, but I do think it was a bit surface level, and I didn't appreciate a lot of the commentary on being plus size. Like, there is a decision that the main character makes towards the end of the book, and I'm like, I don't know if I truly vibe with that, because I don't know, my own personal feelings on being plus size probably got involved in that, but I don't know. It kind of affected my enjoyment of the book, the way that the main character reacted to certain things that happened in here. I ended up rating this one 3 out of 5 stars. It's still a good book. Like, the romance was alright, you know? I'll quite like a bit of rivals to lovers, but like, I don't know. 3 out of 5 stars. Then next up I read The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, and I appreciated it more this time round than the last time I reread it, because it had been a long time the last time I'd reread it, and this time I was expecting all the whoa, Tom Bombadil. whoa. I actually really liked it, and I like all of the characters, the story, and I just feel like it's very cozy to me. I don't know why, it's cozy fantasy for me, and I'm going to be reading the next one soon, hopefully, because I just want to continue with this reread and just be in Lord of the Rings world for a bit longer, because I love it. Obviously I rated this one 5 out of 5 stars. Then next up I read Hoarded by the Dragon, which is by Lillian Lark, and this is I think the final book in this series that's currently out, and I really enjoyed this one. I didn't expect to enjoy this one because it's a monster romance about a thief who breaks into a dragon's house to steal something from the dragon, and then the dragon catches her. He's in heat, they make a bargain, oopsie daisies, she's ended up pregnant. Now, I don't usually enjoy pregnancy books because I just don't want to read about it. I don't care. But this one was good. Like, I don't know why. I feel like the pregnancy aspect to it really worked because there was like mythological elements of the pregnancy, because that shouldn't have been able to happen. And actually, like, growing the child had some requirements that it was like a whole thing. It was like forced proximity, and they both had some issues. They were both dealing with like past grief and family trauma, and I think it was really interesting how they got about it. The dragon is like a gruff, like, leave me alone or I'll murder you kind of dragon, and I appreciate that. I always like that, and I like the main character. I liked everyone in it. Lillian Lark strikes again with a book that I love. 5 out of 5 stars. Who could have predicted? And then the last book that I read was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I did this as a buddy read with Abby from Abby Lucy the Book Lover, and this is the book that I was most nervous to start in April. And I was like, I'm either gonna love it or I'm gonna hate it or I'm gonna be disappointed because of the hype. And I loved it. I can't lie, I started reading it and I got really, really into it. It's about a group of people who are training to become dragon riders, and they're in this like militaristic school where you're probably gonna die, and if you don't die you can become a dragon rider. And I just really got into it and I really liked it. And I will also say that I didn't know that the main character in this book has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's not explicitly named, but the author also has Ehlers-Danlos, and you can see it reflected in injuries that Violet has and the way that like her joints subluxate and things like that. Given that I have hypermobility spectrum disorder, you know, it's really nice to see that kind of reflected and be like, wow, in the fantasy world, the girl with what I have can do it. A little part of me is like, wow, that's so cool. I can imagine that I could, you know, do that. And at the same time, I'm like, I can't walk up the stairs sometimes. So I don't think I would survive in this world. But, you know, it's nice to imagine. It's nice to play pretend. But yeah, that was something I really appreciated about this book. And I just really enjoyed it. Plus, you know, dragons. I was just really into reading dragons towards the end of this month, apparently, and I don't regret it. It was a good time. I'm going to be reading the sequel to this probably in May. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was great. So there we have it. Those are all the books that I read in April. I can't believe I managed to forget that I finished Queen of Shadows in April. I did, though. Woohoo! So if you made it to this part in the video and you don't have anything to say, or you just want to let me know you were here, please leave a dragon emoji in the comments, because dragons. We'll end with a dragon. Finish with the dragon. And if you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!